In the winter of 1872, 400 miles east of the Azores, the Canadian brig Dei Gracia intercepted a vessel drifting erratically through heavy Atlantic swells. When the boarding party reached the deck, they found a ship that defied the usual logic of a wreck. The hull was sound, and the galley was stocked with a 6-month supply of food. The crew's valuables, from their clothing to their wages, sat undisturbed in their quarters. In the hold, 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol remained exactly where they'd been loaded. But the mechanical state of the ship told a different story. The single lifeboat was gone. 2 cargo hatches lay open on the deck. A bilge pump sat partially dismantled, and a heavy tow rope trailed behind the vessel, its fibers violently snapped. There was no sign of the struggle, no blood on the planks, no evidence of piracy. 10 people had simply walked away from their posts. This creates a baffling contradiction. A highly disciplined crew had deliberately abandoned a vessel that was, by every physical measure, safer than the lifeboat they used to escape. Without a clear cause, the 1872 inquiry in Gibraltar devolved into a character assassination. Attorney General Frederick Sully Flood pushed a narrative of mutiny and drunken murder, ignoring the fact that his own forensic experts found no evidence of violence. By 1884, the truth was buried under fiction. Arthur Conan Doyle published a short story that invented the most famous details of the legend, claiming the boarding party found warm meals on the table and a ship in pristine, dry condition. These fabrications effectively erased the real commander of the vessel, Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs, a temperate, religious, and highly experienced mariner who would never have abandoned his ship without an absolute threat to his family and crew. To find what actually happened, we have to look past the ghost stories and focus on the specific scientific anomalies that convinced an expert captain he was out of time. Captain Briggs was already under immense pressure, battling a series of severe winter storms that made every navigational choice a matter of survival. His primary timing instrument, the marine chronometer, was failing. This error caused Briggs to miscalculate his location by 120 miles, leaving him geographically lost in treacherous waters. Below deck, a hidden flaw was compromising the ship. Debris from a previous cargo of coal and a recent refitting had settled into the bilge, and as the ship pitched in the storm, this dust and wood shavings surged into the bilge pump, completely clogging the internal suction valves. With the pumps dead, the crew used a sounding rod to check for leaks. Then as the ship rolled, seawater sloshed up the interior of the hull, coating the rod and providing a highly exaggerated reading of the water level. Blind to his true position and receiving data that suggested the hull was rapidly taking on water, Briggs concluded his ship was foundering. Then, the chemical nature of the cargo provided the final catalyst. The hold was packed with 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol, a substance that becomes a volatile gas when exposed to the air. 9 of these barrels were made of porous red oak, allowing roughly 300 gallons of ethanol to leak. As the ship reached the warmer Azores climate, the internal temperature crossed 13 degrees Celsius, the critical flashpoint point where the vapors reach maximum density. A random spark, likely from static or metal striking metal as the ship pitched violently, ignited the hold. The result was a high-pressure blue flash fire that blew the cargo hatches straight off the deck. This specific chemical combustion happens so quickly that it generates intense heat but leaves no physical scorch marks on the wood. The fire existed for only a few seconds before vanishing. To the crew, this invisible explosion was a terrifying false alarm. It suggested the entire vessel was seconds away from a catastrophic blast, leaving no physical evidence for the investigators who would arrive weeks later. Convinced the ship was sinking and actively exploding, Briggs ordered an immediate evacuation. The crew gathered their essential survival tools. They systematically took the chronometer and the sextant, the precision instruments they would need to navigate a small lifeboat back to land. They used the thick peak halyard rope to tether the lifeboat to the stern of the main vessel. This allowed the family and crew to maintain a safe distance while they waited to see if the ship would actually explode or sink. But as the storm intensified, the massive brigantine caught a heavy gust and surged forward. The tow line stretched beyond its limit and snapped. The small, overloaded lifeboat was left adrift in the open Atlantic, where it was quickly overwhelmed by the swells. All 10 occupants were lost. the Mary Celeste remained perfectly buoyant and structurally sound for 9 more days. It was a tragedy of deceptive data. From clogged pumps, a failing clock, and a thermodynamic fluke pushed a group of experts into a fatal choice. It shows that maritime history's most enduring mysteries are governed by the unforgiving laws of physics.